So I've said enough, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to get out the way, and we're going to let our panelists kind of jump in. And actually, I'm going to start in the same order that we just kind of went, if that's okay with you all. So Miss Hendricks, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on education and the plight of the Black community.
So good afternoon, everyone. I, as our moderator said, Cicely Hendricks. I graduated from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Any rattlers? And I also have my master's from them in school psychology. So I was in education for a while, and then went over into biotech sales for the last 20 years. I recently decided to step away, and in a move that we made about a year and a half ago to stay home with my 5 children, ranging in age from 14 to 2. So quite busy, probably busier now than I was before. And, having 5 children, of course, education is extremely, extremely important to our family, and a good quality public education is extremely important to our family, because paying for 5 children to go to private school is not even an option. Neither did I want it to be an option, because I am a product of public schools. And I believe that if we put the resources into our public school system, we will compete just as well on any level of a $50,000 a year private school. So for me, our plight is to continue to raise awareness and make sure that our dollars are going into our public school system where they should be, and really evenly dispersing them even into communities where, they look like us and they deserve, quality education as well. Looking at the dollars that are spent into our charter schools and taking, school choice and, children, the resources being taken away from the neighborhood schools. And I think that it's extremely important that we all get behind making our systems equal. If they aren't equal, we'll never be able to all compete. So good afternoon again. I'm excited about having this conversation with you all this afternoon.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you very much for coming in on that with us. And we have now Professor Miller. I'm calling you Professor Miller. I guess I'm prophesying here. How about Principal Miller?
Yeah, one day, that is the hope. That's the dream of becoming a professor one day, but not yet. So yeah, glad to be here, you guys. It's feeling good. I'm here in North Carolina. It's about 80 degrees today, which is unheard of for the end of February. We were expecting snow at this time. So I'm feeling refreshed today. I just left the equity training for instruction. We talked a lot about core instruction. And if there's any educators out there, after you leave some trainings, sometimes you just get that jolt, right? That boost of energy because you just learned something new, or was reminded of something that you always knew was right. So happy to be here. And thanks, to everybody who put this together. So with that being said, I just want to kind of talk through like the history or like the origins of the education system. And then if I can, I just want to dive in a few positive and negative impacts of the education system and how it has affected our Black community. So way back, 1800s, there was a guy named Horace Mann. They called him the father of the common school. He was looking for, some education systems, right? So they studied different places around the world, and they found one in Prussia, like Germany. And this Prussian model was implemented. They started it in like Massachusetts, then it spread to New York, and then all across the North. He actually had a sister who helped it spread throughout the South after the Civil War. But Prussia itself had adopted this model, or had created this model rather, because they were defeated in a war. And when they sat down with all the generals and all the powers that be, I'm assuming they thought, and they came up with the idea that they lost this war because the soldiers were unorganized and non-compliant and weren't disciplined. So they created this system that would teach the next generation, the students that were coming up, duty, right? A sense of duty, a sense of discipline, respect for authority, and help them develop that ability to follow orders, right? So the key characteristic of that system, or the system that we eventually adopted, was to define for the kid what was to be learned, right? What was to be thought about, and how long to think about it. And if you think about it, all of you have went to school, that's exactly what we do. We come up with curriculums and pacing guides to help our teachers have a resource. It's sort of like a little Bible to go by to determine what the kid is supposed to learn, how long you're supposed to stay on that particular subject. And they actually give guiding questions a lot of times for to pull out different conversations and different language from students. So we're like training them, how to think. So I just want us to think today and keep in mind the purpose for the system in the beginning, right? But before considering the positive and negative effects of that system on the Black community, first, I think we need to address the elephant in the room, which is that the ugly truth is that this system is ran by people, right? Systems don't run themselves. They run by people, and they were created by people. And these people have about 86 billion neurons that fire back and forth in their brain that causes us to have this ability, this unique ability to think and make decisions on our own. So before we talk about all the positive and the negative impacts that the system has had on that Black community, let's adjust our lens, right? So we can see these things as things that we actually can change, right? If we're willing to do the work. So this system, that we have here, it does not, in my opinion, does not allow Black students to thrive socially and emotionally while maintaining their cultural integrity. I'm gonna say that one more time. I don't believe that this system, the way it is now, allows students from the Black community, or of the Black culture, I would call it, to thrive socially and emotionally while maintaining their cultural integrity. Kids are constantly forced to code switch multiple times a day sometimes. Dr. Miller had talked about, I work in a unique position where most of my community, or my school community, around there's $500,000 houses, $1 million houses, $750,000 right across the street for townhouses. So these kids are apt to resources, right? And there's another group of kids, right, who come from impoverished areas, and they're bussed in. It's about one bus holds about 72 kids. We have about 725 students at our school. So you can do the math on that. But they need to adapt to their environment about 3 times a day, right? So school is one way, community is another way, home environment could be another way, right? Because they can, handle conflict one way in the house and then have to go outside, right outside their door, and they see people handling conflict a whole different way. And then when they get on the bus and come to school, they're expected to handle conflict in a different way. So we just have to keep that in mind, that this system, there's no flexibility for that. And if there is, it needs to be created or allowed by the actual teacher. So the concept of learning, this is another negative impact, I believe, that the concept of learning is not engaging because it's not strength-based. This system, I work on the elementary level. So typically we contact parents if something's wrong most times, right? The child is habitually late to school, or he or she is about to be suspended, or they're in jeopardy of failing, right? Don't we think that it's a problem that IEP meetings, right, individual education plan meetings, are twice as long as parent conferences, right? And they happen more often than open house events. Open house events are supposed to be when the community, the family comes in and we can showcase all the talents and all the work and all the positive things that our students are doing. But we hold IEP meetings more than that, right? We hold disciplinary conferences way more often than we do those kind of things. I believe that needs to change. The system has also damaged the student mindset and influenced generational distrust. And what I mean by generational distrust is, for generations, there's this idea that school ain't for everybody, right? And it's kind of been like passed down for a long time. And I believe that our system, our education system, has confirmed this by our practices. For example, if you can't read on a certain grade level by a certain time, you get labeled, right? Or if you struggle to manage your emotions, you're aggressive, the school is not safe for you, so you can't be here. So all of these are things that I feel like negatively impact the community, but I am an educator. I am an assistant principal, and one day I would love to be a principal and then superintendent and all of these things because I want to make a greater impact. So I do see some positive things there. One positive, districts have made intentional efforts to establish real world connections through math, science, literacy, business, all of those things. All of that kind of stuff is changing if you look at the curriculum, right? They also offer extracurricular activities. They adopt engaging curriculums, and oftentimes they hire teachers and leaders that are change agents, right? And are willing to go the extra mile for our student community. Another positive thing is in classrooms, students are afforded opportunities to interact and learn from other students of various cultures, right? And they are encouraged to consider different perspectives. Here in North Carolina, I do a lot of observations. I do a lot of evaluations. That's actually one thing that we look for, right? We look when we go in, is the teacher creating opportunities for students to talk and engage and learn and collaborate with each other. And a lot of times that doesn't happen in a community where everybody has the same mindset. So I feel like the kids in our school are very fortunate because we do have a diverse population and they are allowed to do that. This system also helps develop accountability, right? Provide structure and routine for students who need that, helps establish work ethic and responsibility. And there's tons of other things that are positive about the education system, right? So there was a famous guy, I think it was Mark Twain, but he said, I'll never let my schooling interfere with my education, right? So I just implore everybody in the Black community, let's not blame, right, the system, right? It wasn't created for our youth and when it first started, but let's teach our youth how to go to school and learn how you learn. When I say learn how you learn, how do you process information? How do you digest positive and negative feedback? All of these are things that you can learn in the schoolhouse, right? And then we use what we learn and then we clear a path for ourselves and our dreams so that we can be the next change agent, so that we can change the world.
Wow, look, he caught me on mute taking notes. Wow, I'm impressed. We have a lot of things going on. There's a question. I'm gonna hold it for the end, but I do see your question, Dr. Hamilton, and we'll make sure that that Principal Miller comes back to circle and answer that. But I want to kind of move forward with Professor Walker from the Cheney University.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. I'm going to share my screen with you, I think. Let's see if I'm on the right screen. I don't think I'm on the right screen.
We were seeing your files and
yes, not my. Let's see if I can get it up here. Here we go. I think this is it. Nope.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So as you see, I'm going to step back, Pat Walker. I will say this: member, former coach, former intramural director at Cheney University, and an alum, and have just made my opportunities at Cheney University. We are actually celebrating in 3 days our 186th founding of Cheney University. Cheney University was founded by Richard Humphreys, who was a Quaker philanthropist. Okay. And this is a little bit about him, but I'm just going to share. You can read if you'd like. Richard Humphreys was a Quaker, and he implored his Quaker brethren to bequeath $10,000, which was 1/10 of his estate, to to bring forth this institution that would instruct the descendants of the African race in school learning in the branches of mechanic arts, trades, and agriculture in order to prepare them fit and qualify them to act as teachers.
Yes.
This took place at what was then known as the African Institute. That was Cheyney's first name. Believe it or not, Cheyney's first institute started on 136 acre farm out in Pennsylvania. Many people don't know that, don't realize that, but that's where Cheyney first started. Excuse me, it was the African Institute, which we now know as Cheyney University. Roughly in about 1846, after several years, that farm school closed and it was sold. We then moved to what was known as now the Institute for Colored Youth in the city of Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, we had several locations before we moved to the Bainbridge Street location. And you see the picture there of the Bainbridge Street location, which was known as the Institute for Colored Youth, or we so lovingly call it now ICY. So we were here for almost 40 to 50 years. And this is when the Committee of Quakers, as you see in 1902, had recommended that we purchase the farm in Cheyney, which is our current location. They recommended this purchase for $11,000. Imagine that, $11,000 is what our 286 acres of Cheyney University is. So as you see, the school then reorganized and reopened in 1903 with 14 pupils, 14 students, and Booker T. Washington served as the keynote speaker at the formal opening, which took place. So we've had many, many expansions at Cheyney University. We see here we used the sale of the Bainbridge location to help to support the upgrade that we did on the campus. These are two of our now original buildings. This building right here is what we call Humphreys Hall. This started off as the original agriculture or industrial industrial arts building. Currently, it houses our Humphrey Scholars. This building over here is what was then the women's dormitory, and now it houses our honors program, and it's a residential facility as well as classroom. So these are the two original buildings on the campus. Through Principal Brown's administration, there was a lot of growth, steady physical growth. A road was put on the outside of the property that delineated between Chester County and Delaware County. So our university actually sits on two campuses, on two counties. So here you see the early look of Cheyney University. This is that building, Humphreys Hall, which is our now building that houses our Humphrey Scholars. Here is the Emlyn Hall, the Honors Academy now. This building over here is Carnegie Hall, which it was our then library, which Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, donated $10,000 to establish the library. This building right here. Oh, if I get my cursor there. Come on, cursor. This last building next to Carnegie is Pennsylvania Hall right here, which was the gym and the auditorium. So as you see, this is the beginnings of our current day quadrangle, okay, which is historic in nature because all of these buildings, and there's new buildings here, but not new, but there's old buildings that weren't built at this picture that all make up what we lovingly know as the quad. So here again is just one of our early classes of seniors that graduated from the Institute of Colored Youth. Here's some of our classes, just, so, we get an idea of what our scholars look like back in the day. Notice everybody is dressed, covered, and that kind of thing. Of course, what's a university or a school without football? We had football and baseball back in that time. And just moving in to wrap up this part of it, we have Octavius Caddo, who was a scholar, a graduate, was a class valedictorian at the Institute of Colored Youth, and he ties into the plight of America. Back then, Caddo was instrumental in getting the 15th Amendment passed in 1837, which gave Black men the right to vote. So we are infused in the history of the United States, through graduates of our university. And I could go on and on and on, but this isn't the forum for that. A current day or more recent, Ed Bradley, who I'm sure we all know, was a graduate from our communications department and was a longtime journalist on 60 Minutes. So, that's just a couple. As I said, I could go on and on and on, and I won't. But today, Cheney's mission today, as we look at the current Humphrey Scholarship Hall, Humphrey Scholar Hall. This is the interior, which that building has been completely renovated. All of those buildings actually have been. This is the Carnegie Hall Library, former library, because we've just renovated and moved back into our Leslie Pinckney Hill Library. This is one of our newer buildings, a residence hall. We just call it New Res right now. I think Dr. Miller said he was going to write a check and have his name put on our New Res dorm there. I think we'll talk about that later, Doc. And our newest building is our science facility, which we are actively involved with STEM, all sorts of sciences and technology. So the campus is vibrant, it's moving. These are the portrayers of the source. If you get a chance, click on that link and that will take you to the history, which is more extensive than what I have time to go over here, but it's a rich and fascinating history. And I think that we don't know where we're going unless we know where we have been. And Cheney's history is a fabric of America. And as we go, I think so goes the nation. And we have to really, take all of our experiences. Everybody on the panels is coming from a different perspective. And, I think we have to really just kind of figure out a way how we kind of mold them and meld them all together for the sake of Black America. All right. Some of the things that are happening today were happening back 186 years ago. And we still haven't been able to solve those problems. So that just tells us that we have to continue to stay busy. We have to educate these young people to be able to be the scholars, the educators, the visionary leaders that we're going to need to be able to overcome these hurdles. Have we made some strides? Yes, we have made some strides, but we have a long ways to go. So I yield my time back to Dr. Miller. I look forward to our discussion as we continue forth.
Outstanding. And thank you for the historical perspective, that walk back in history to see how a group of, I'm just going to say Black folks, took nothing and made something. And it still exists and has been instrumental in changing the lives of tens of thousands, of probably hundreds of thousands, as long as it's been around, young people.
Right.
I want to move forward because I've been anticipating wanting to hear from this young man. Tavon, the mic is yours, sir.
No, I definitely appreciate it. Hello, everybody. As Dr. Miller just said, I am Tavon Parker. I'm gonna throw my my @ name for all social media platforms in there because it's just an honor to be on this panel with some people that I know. First off, Dr. Washington, Dr. Miller, big bro, Newt Miller Jr. So just shouting you guys out. It's definitely an honor, as well as all the other participants. And thank you, everybody, for being on here. As I said, my name is Tavon Parker, and my story is kind of different. I think I'm the only person on the panel that's not a doctor. But I have my doctorate in lived experiences. So one thing that I learned, even just with the Black plight and the education system, just taking a step back, is just realizing the importance of getting our youth and getting the people that are getting educated to understand what the education represents. And I say that because when I was in high school, I was a great student. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to Millersville to play basketball. And once I reached Millersville, the dynamic changed between my mom not telling me to go to school and I'm on a college campus and my focus is basketball. So if you can really get these young people who are getting educated to understand the importance of what is in front of them and the opportunity that's in front of them, I think that's something that is obviously important. And the second thing that I've learned is just really trying to understand the emotional intelligence is just as important as the IQ. So the EQ is just as important as the IQ. And the reason I say that is obviously just to give you guys some background on myself, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship, lost my scholarship, came back to my city, fell in with the wrong crowd, ended up going to jail. And after jail, my paradigm shifted because, again, opportunities, what's around you, environment. So when my paradigm shifted, I realized that education is the passport to the future. And a lot of our youth are ignorant. And the ignorance comes from what I call generational and systematic curses. And the generational piece is parents and grandparents not really valuing the education. I have a nonprofit called the Advantage Program that I'll talk about a little later. And in my program, I have kids who are 12 years old that can't read. I have kids that are in the 3rd and 4th grade that don't know how to add. And when I see this, it frustrates me because these kids are in charter schools. These kids are in public schools. And then I have a 7-year-old daughter who reads on the 3rd grade level and does math on the 3rd grade level, and she's in 1st grade. And I struggle to see why. But then when you go to these schools and you listen to what the teachers and the administrators have to say about these kids, and you realize, oh, the parents are not at this meeting, but me as the head of a program is at this meeting, you start really understanding the plight that these kids are up against. Because if you're receiving homework and you go home and your parents are not checking it or asking, you don't even have homework in these kids' head. I've had a kid who has back work for a full marking period, and every time he comes to our tutoring, he tells me, oh, no, I don't have homework. I just have missed assignments. And I'm like, well, you're home. That's homework, right? You got work to do at your house. So there's a generational piece and then a systematic piece where I'm really struggling. And maybe somebody on here has the answer. But if you're in 6th grade and can't read, what did the kindergarten to the 5th grade teachers do? And I come to learn that in this system, especially here in Pennsylvania, sometimes you have to pass the kid along, even if they're not adequately ready. And that sucks to say, however, that's the reality. So the systematic piece of we're not educating these kids, however, we're passing them along with the generational piece of the parents aren't as involved and don't care if the kid has an A, don't even realize the truancy piece and don't realize what this is leading to. I think those are two big things that the Black community faces. And I say the Black community specifically because that's what my experience is in. But the flip side of that is the positives that you see, where you take a look around the world and you realize that the US is the only country that chooses to educate everybody. So when you look at the international level and you see the US doesn't place that high on these tests, you realize that all these other countries are educating their 1% or the 10%, and the smartest people are the ones that's actually taking the test. So it kind of makes sense, but I think that the plight that we face really is the things that we believe in and push. And I'm a proponent. I always say change the narrative. And what my role is, Dr. Miller, shameless plug. It's blur, my bad. So I have a workbook called Changing the Narrative. And what I do is I go to different schools and I try to teach the things that aren't being taught in school, because I fully understand that the curriculum, like you were saying earlier, Newt, there's things that have to be taught. There's a timetable for those things to be taught. There's a system of how to grade or evaluate somebody that is being taught those things. So when I come into schools and I'm teaching self-discipline, and I'm teaching time management, and I'm teaching budgeting and personal development, and how to hold yourself accountable, and your strong side and your weak side when we're talking about ethics and morals, those are things that aren't being taught in school and aren't being evaluated because we're worried about if you can add or if you can read. And I fully understand that adding and reading makes you successful later in life. However, again, the emotional intelligence says if you can't relate to this kid, you'll never be able to teach this kid. So again, I say that to say I thank everybody just for being on here, because part of this whole understanding is being open to receiving new information. And one thing that I'll conclude with is it's not about what you know, it's about applied information.
Are you going to show us your?
I wanted to show Tavon.
Okay.
Tavon, can I share that?
Yeah, go ahead. I see the pop up. I was like, oh.
You know, tag team, right? Okay, so hold on. And then you can talk about it as I'm sharing, okay?
Okay.
All right.
So Dr. Washington is pulling up the workbook. I actually subcontract with her. She has a business that creates this. And it was monumental because, again, just learning from my experiences, trying to show these kids the plight while also relating to them. So I wrote a book called Changing the Narrative. And then what this workbook does is it takes the principles out of the book and makes them tangible. So we're talking about the childhood memories, the growth mindset, self-discipline and time management, a cost-benefit analysis, multiple streams of income, as well as the sustainable plan. And each different module is crucial because, again, it builds on one another. So when we look at module 1 with the past, where have you came from and where are you trying to go? Because we deal with kids who parents never graduated high school. So if your parent can't help you with your work and they don't even care, guess what? That starts going on to the kids. But with the negative, there's also the positive. So getting the kids to understand that they're negative, they're positive, and being able to evaluate what is it that you want from this life. You can take the positive stuff, forget about the negative stuff, and then go apply it. And then what we do is we had them write a letter to their future self, because again, you have to hold yourself accountable. I love principals and I love teachers, but we can want it as bad as we want for the kids. But until we can get them to that level of self-actualization, we're fighting an uphill battle. The second module, what we do is we had them do a personality test, because what these personality tests does is now, like you said, Newt, you have to learn how to learn. And that's one thing that I really didn't understand. But once you learn your strengths, you learn your weaknesses, you learn what you're motivated by, all of a sudden things start making sense. Like, oh, I have ADHD and I have 1,000 thoughts running through my mind. Guess what I need? I need a planner. So just little simple things. But again, it's really trying to instill these things. Here you see the growth mindset, because again, we have over 10,000 thoughts in our head every day, 80% of them being negative, and that's as an adult. So just imagine a kid who is hearing negative things, who is believing these negative things, and then their environment is reinforcing these negative things. It's again, it's a plight. Here, this is what I talked about as far as the code of ethics, and really trying to get these kids to understand their own morality, their own ethical decisions. Because believe it or not, the things that you do not affect me. I can hate it, I can be angry, I can try to inspire and motivate you, but I can't go to jail for you. I can't pay your bills for you. I can't raise your kids for you. So again, self-actualization is the goal. There's 6 modules. Here we have the the cost benefit analysis. And this was really important for me because I was an entrepreneur at 14 years old and started my own lawn care business. But the way you perceive things will dictate the way you do things. And I ended up selling drugs and going to jail because I took a shortcut when I lost my scholarship. But if you can literally have a cost benefit analysis and see what you want from life, this is going to lead to this, this is going to lead to that. Let's go with that one. Self-actualization. Here you see module 5, again, me being an entrepreneur, I have 3 businesses, and I realized that kids love money, right? They love making money. Most kids take that shortcut and go the negative route because they want money. Most kids struggle in life because money, we call it resources, but the resources are really money, right? And this is a way to, you can start making your own money. I had a lawn care business at 14. So trying to get them to understand that. And then my favorite module out of all of them is module 6, because it wraps everything up and helps them create a sustainability plan. And the sustainable plan is, what's your plan for after high school? Because it's college, it's trade school, it's entrepreneur, it's military. I can't make your life for you. Who am I to say which one is better? But after you can create your own, you can write that final letter to yourself, and we can literally go back to module 1 and see the growth from module 1 to module 6. So I thank you, Dr. Washington, for that. But yeah, I'm a full proponent of just really trying to understand the emotional side of these kids before I lean into the intellectual side, because again, it's not just them, but it's a whole community that has to support them, and it starts at home, it branches out to the school, and it's where they live at as well. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Miller. Thank you guys for your time, and I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Outstanding. We're just gonna move right into you, Doc Wash, for time's sake. What you got for us?
First of all, I just need the audience to understand, Newt Sr. and I, Dr. Newt Sr. and I go way back, like he said, started teaching. Newt Miller Jr. was one of my students when I was his assistant principal. We had multiple conversations. So to hear you speak is beyond a joy, and to hear that passion. Tavon, you know, I already love you. To the audience, that was not planned. Tavon can nod. It's just when you are engaged in the work, it's important that you're connected to the work. And so there's a lot to say, Brother Miller Sr. So I'm gonna try and give me how many minutes I have, because I'm gonna do this real quick.
I think we've blown up our program, so just go ahead and talk, and we'll
go
figure
ahead
it out
and do
after
it.
that.
All right, hold on then. I'm gonna do this. So there's a term called unfinished learning and unfinished teaching, right? And so there's some things I wanna just try and pull all together. First of all, the good doctor from Cheyney University, she is accurate. Cheyney is the first. And I just want to share about when we talk about the plight of education, has it gone away? Where is it? This is Dr. Smallwood. My name is Sherry Rowland Washington. They call me Doc Wash, from York, Pennsylvania. I am a retired assistant superintendent, public educator, adjunct professor. I love all things education and working with youth. And so as a retiree, I have my business called SRW Consulting, but part of that is private tutoring, SAT prep, and the other part is advocacy and curriculum writing. So I take all my passions and tie them up into one. And so James Smallwood graduated from ICY. He is a prominent teacher here in York, Pennsylvania. He led the first African-American school here in York, Pennsylvania. He is buried here in York, Pennsylvania, with some other of his classmates from ICY. When he graduated from there, he and his colleagues came back to York and started teaching African-American children. So Cheyney is the first HBCU. His marker is here still in York. So I just wanted to put that out there. Professor Dr. Walker, thank you. I just had to tie that in. All right. Our next piece, we talk about the plight of education and where are we going and what's going on. So I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, Dr. Miller, I'm sorry. I'm doing a lot here. All right. And in addition to what I do privately, I currently serve as the education chair for the NAACP, Pennsylvania State Conference chapter. And I just wanted to share a few things, and I'm not going to do the whole presentation, but we talk about cradle to career. And where's education, and is it value, and is it going away? Well, part of the NAACP, our focus is on the challenge. We know that there's a lack of equity in education, and it took COVID for some of our urban schools to get technology, right? We have certain regulations now for our young people where they have to adhere to several different options in order to graduate. Here in Pennsylvania, it's called the Act 158. Not just attending schools for 12 years will get you a degree, but you got to do one of these 5 things: either pass that standardized test, pass a college test, do a career assessment pathway test, or go into service and pass that test, right? So are we really preparing them? It's how we teach, it's how we connect. Everything's important. When we talk about cradle to career, it's about family and community engagement. It's about equitable resources. There's a learning gap, there's unfinished learning because of the inequities, because there's an opportunity gap. There's an opportunity gap because our schools are not funded. We're still separate and not equal. Pennsylvania just won the case 2 weeks ago where we sued the state of Pennsylvania for underfunding urban schools based on the value of a house. And we won. And so now we're taking to task the state, the government, to put reparations in for all those urban schools and the lack of resources. I agree with Dr. Waller and Mr. Miller, Principal Miller. If we have the same monies and the same resources, we'll get the same successes, or if not more. So how do we challenge that? We dig deep and we go old school. We take it back to the community. We build grassroots pockets of programs. So we have a plan. These are gentlemen, they were friends since Little League football. And they made a pact in 8th grade that they were all going to go to high school, graduate above a 3.0, pursue different careers. They made it a challenge into how many colleges they got into. As you can see, most of them graduated with honors. They were in the top 20% of their class, and all of them are just finishing their freshman year in college. How did that happen? They made a pact. They decided to focus on HBCUs. We asked them why. They said because when they went to visit, they felt at home. They felt at home. So we didn't turn anybody away who didn't want an HBCU, but we listened. That's part of the thing we have to do. If we want to value education in our communities, in the Black community, we have to listen. We have to involve community, data, collaborative action networks. Some of you are from PA here, some of you are from all over. How do you do that? When we talk about resources, it's about collaborating with your programs that are in your area. I appreciate you, Dr. Miller, when you say I single-handedly, but I did not. It was a collaboration, working with the school districts, working with organizations. So wherever you are, if you have a Boys and Girls Club, collaborate. You may not be able to reach those kids in the school, but you can go to that club or you can get them connected. In Dauphin County and York County, we have a program called Bro to Go Junior. We have at Temple University, we have the Math and Science Upward Bound program. In Harrisburg, you have the AXO program, which is part of the NAACP. And if you're not sure what these programs are, just send me a chat and I'll reach out to you and share more with you. But these are some of our resources where we collaborate with folks and we get them together. We have the Advantage program. Tavon didn't even know he was on this slide for the NAACP. We have Evolve Training and Development in Stilton. Evolve Training is actually a career workforce company, nonprofit, that goes into the middle schools and works with young people who may not want to go to college, but they connect them with the mentor in construction, electrician, barbering. It's a mentor. You have the APJ Foundation here in York, which works with young people who are in that life, who are hustlers, who are in that life not because they want to be, but because they don't know any other way. He reaches out to these young people and he gets them involved in the automotive industry. And it's a weekend class, a week in the actual garage, hands-on, they're learning. He's preparing them to pass that certified test. And he's teaching them, they have to do book studies like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so they understand credit, but they can only graduate from this program not just because they pass the test, but when they can demonstrate that they know how to manage their life, sustainability, and purchase their home. You have Microsoft certifications that our children can start to get at the age of 14. How do we reach our young people? By helping them connect to what is your goal after you get out of high school? What is your goal? Work on that goal, work on that plan. There has to be a call to action. So one of the things that Dr. Miller was sharing that I do, one of the ways you can do that, I choose to focus on preparing young people for college. And during our last presentation, one of the young people wanted to know, one of the listeners wanted to know, well, how do we start something like that? So it was an ideal from my son and his friends. They said, hey, we want to do this. I said, oh, okay. We started. And what it looked like was, just take you real quick, it's 2 minutes. So we do a SAT prep program, but the prep program is, sorry, I don't know how to shut it off. Give me one. Can you hear me? So we do an SAT prep program, but what we do, we work with school districts. So here in New York City, every Wednesday at 12 o'clock, we bring juniors, sophomores, and we collaborate with the church. The students prefer to come to the church because it's emotionally safe. You know, sometimes our young urban Black and brown kids don't want to show that they're smart. So they come here and they all encourage each other. SAT prep is just one piece. It's about the whole plan. It's about what's affordable. It's about, hey, making them aware of colleges out there like Cheney. A lot of our young people didn't even know Cheney was the other HBCU in PA. It's making them aware of other schools like Elizabeth City State University in North Carolina and Fayetteville. They have what's called the North Carolina Promise Program. That means any out-of-state student, the yearly tuition is $5,000. $5,000, way cheaper than PA, exception to Cheney. But making it affordable, working with them, not holding their hand. The biggest key is, I would have to say, Dr. Miller, is a lot of times in our community, we don't know what we don't know because it's hidden. And it's the responsibility of those of us who do know to make it aware and openly share that information to inspire each other. And I know I did a whole presentation about 3, so I'm sorry. That's it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. All of our panelists, we had a whole different game plan, but I felt the flow happen in another direction, and I did not want to stop it. But we have a couple of minutes left, and if those are our panelists that are still on that have to jump, I totally respect that. We're going to flow over about 5 minutes because I want to pose this question because we have some faculty on board. We've given a lot of information for parents of young folks and to let some of us in higher ed know some of the things that are happening in communities on the K-12 arena. But I want to ask you, all of you on the panel, and you can jump in however you see fit, for us here that work in higher ed, right? What are some of the things, and again, like I said, we serve a non-traditional population here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. So these are folks who have maybe been out of school 5, 10, 15, whatever years, have done some life, and they're coming back to school. So some of the habits, some of the trends, some of the behaviors that you spoke about, some of our students may have, right? But they're adults, right? So what would you say to us as faculty that are hands-on with these individuals? What would you say to us to help our students be more successful, to stick and stay. And I'm just going to give you the data. The last data I looked at, our Black population are the lowest performing at our universities, meaning retention rates, failure rates, or graduation rates. So give me some clues, extending your knowledge from that K-12 arena. Give me some clues. Give me some things that I can take with me from your bank of knowledge and wisdom. You hear me stalling for you, right?
I got you.
From your bank of knowledge, so that we can better serve our population.
I'm going to answer as a mom of 2 students who are in college right now. My son's at North Carolina A&T. My daughter's at St. Joseph. And so I watch them. And I'm also an adjunct professor. So one thing I would say is structure. I saw the tips in the chat about the 7 study things. One thing I see my son struggling with is structure. Our students, some of our students go to high school all their life and don't have to study. And then they come to college and they come to class and that's it. But they don't realize they need to set their agenda the night before. When are you going to study? How do you set an agenda? It may sound simple, but it's real. Like, I don't know if all campuses still have academic advisors, but really encouraging the students to ask questions and to go see their academic advisor. Sometimes it's just a little thing of they don't know and they're afraid to ask what they don't know. So maybe as a professor saying, hey, can you stay back from class real quick? I got a question for you. Let me see how you studied for this test.
My bad, I'm on mute. Love it, love it, love it. I threw them up in the chat. Anyone else have something for us?
I'm just going to say that I'm going to call her Professor Washington is dead on the spot, with her comment in terms of that. I'm in the classroom and the reason our students are not successful are exactly what she said. They're not used to the structure that the rigors of college present to them. Getting up in the morning to go to your first class, okay? You've been home, mom wakes you up in the morning, get you on your way to school. At college, you don't have mom waking you up, making sure that you have eaten. This is the nappingest generation I've ever seen. In between classes, we're taking naps. Huh? We're taking nap and we oversleep and miss our class. So what do we do? So it's about now that I go after the students that are underperforming in my classes. Is it a lot of work? Yes, it is. Because, if half of your class might be struggling, okay, so why are they struggling? Fortunately, at our university, we have a whole program called Success Coaches. We have 3 of them, and it's a whole office that deals with those kinds of issues. So if I have 6 people in a class, I can go to my success coach who has all of our majors and say, this list of students are struggling with this, and her job is to go after, to communicate with those students. They're supposed to always communicate with their success coach, but we recognize that that's you, and we have something in place to deal with that. Is it perfect? It's not. We're still ironing out the kinks. We've been doing it for 3 or 4 years, 4 years now, 4 or 5 years, and it's going good, but we have to get better. We have to get better because we're still losing. We're still losing. And I think it was Dr. Miller that said about retention. That's so key. Higher eds are not in business if we don't retain our students. To find a way to retain them. And I applaud Professor Washington and Professor Parker for the programs that you're doing in the community, because collaboration is another key part of it, okay? We can't do it by ourselves. You can't do it by yourself. We all have to collaborate together. I was just telling my one class just yesterday that it's a creative and cultural arts class. We're going to go into the community. I mean, it's not education, but it's where younger kids can see older kids that look like them, and we're doing something with them. And at some point, come on out to Cheney and let's see something. Let's do this. Let's do that. And then it grows up in them. It grows up in them. And then, hopefully, it doesn't matter if they don't come to Cheney, just go somewhere. They can even go to Lincoln, Dr. Miller.
Outstanding. I'm going to jump in and kind of move us along because we're over time. And thank you for those that are staying on. I don't know, Newt, Tavon, Cicely, is there anything you'd like to add to that? I'd love to hear your tidbits.
Yeah, just real quick, Dr. Walker, Dr. Washington, next time you guys want to talk about me, just do it in the chat. Don't do it out in front of everybody. And the reason I say that is because Dr. Washington, she hit it on the head when she said in high school, like I said, I had good grades all throughout high school, enough to get an academic scholarship, and I never studied. And I got to college and never studied, and in high school caught up to me real quick. I didn't even go to the library. And Dr. Walker, what you said, believe it or not, I'm a motivational speaker. And when I got to college my freshman year, all the basketball players, the upperclassmen would tell me, oh, freshman, you don't got to go to your syllabus week. You don't got to do this. You don't got to do that. I had an 8 o'clock class, and my class was public speaking. And I missed the class so many times that the professor told me if I missed again, I wouldn't be, the only thing I could pass with was the D. If I missed again, I would automatically have an F because attendance goes into your grade.
Absolutely.
Little did I know, my whole life, I've been waking up at 8 o'clock and going to school. So I say that to say, Dr. Miller, my answer to that would be exposure. And what I mean by that is exposing these kids to life in college before they get to college. So the biggest thing I try to do, even with the Advantage program, is just showing these kids a multitude of cities, a multitude of environments, a multitude of high-level people, so to get their brains working. Because we can tell kids all about college, but until they get there and experience it for themselves and have their own perspective, they're not going to be able to fully understand what they're up against. So just to answer your question short, because I know we're over time, I would say just exposing them. And again, the earlier, the better, but exposing them to that college life, getting them on campuses so they can see the interaction, so they can see the demographics, so they can see exactly what they're going to be stepping into.
Outstanding. Either of you?
One thing I'll piggyback off of is, especially for your non-traditional students, most of them are working full-time or, really trying to handle family responsibilities as well as going to school. So just in your arena, making sure that if you know of resources or scholarships or other ways that they can, be assisted financially, because financial reasons are a lot of, I guess the main reason that Black men even, quit college during their, trying to matriculate. So if you have resources that you can, because a lot of times I'll go to professors and they're like, oh yeah, I did know about this scholarship. And it's not that they didn't care to share, but it just might not be top of mind that somebody may be struggling to stay in school and they need, just some additional financial help. So.
Love it.
And I think I would come from a different angle, being that most of my experience or all of my experience is on the elementary level. Something I noticed when I look at my data, my Black students in my school are underperforming academically, and they're also the frequent flyers to my office. And then we have a population, we call it ESL, right? ESL population, where these students get services because English is their second language. So they get people to come and pull them out of class and help them actually learn the language or help scaffold instruction. And you can almost bet that on end of grade tests, on benchmarks, they're actually showing more growth than African-American students. And English is their second language. And I think that I attribute that to the fact that they are getting those services and they are getting that extra help. So college professors, high school teachers, whoever's out there helping and dealing with our African-American students, I would say go the extra mile, look for ways to differentiate instruction, make sure that your instruction is culturally responsive. And then when you're crafting those lessons, actually think about the students who you're actually delivering the lesson to, right? So get out of the, the sage on the stage type attitude to where you have to do all the talking and they have to do all the listening, because we know that in education, the one who does the talking is the one who's doing the learning. So just remember, that differentiation, those accommodations, keeping students in mind, their culturally responsive teaching, that is equity. So when we have professors, teachers, leaders who keep that in the forefront of their mind, that those things are equity, I think that will move the Black community.
Wow. Wow. I have to finish putting that. He said so much I couldn't keep up with him. I got most of it down, but everything that Newt Miller just said sounds like culture of care to me. How about that, University of Arizona Global Campus staff? So culture of care isn't just something we made up. It's the way that education is supposed to be done. Listen, panel, thank you very much for coming in. And those of you who stayed after for this amount of time, for the time that we've gone over, we kind of just got off plan, but sometimes you have to discern the path and let that path run the way that it's supposed to go. So I'm hoping that we had some thinkers on here that heard the information that our panelists have given and are not just looking at it literally. Now I'm talking to my higher ed faculty. Don't just take what they said literally and said it doesn't apply to me because they're talking about K-12, they're talking about children. I want you to hear the patterns and then what we're experiencing as well. Patterns begin from somewhere. In order to change that pattern, you have to go back in the math program where you put the plus instead of the minus, and now put the minus and begin again. So thank you very much, you all, for what you shared with us. I applaud you. My heart is full. My page is full. I am going to say, I tried to take in the chat as they were talking. You saw the chat going up with a lot of my inputs. I was trying to take what they said and translate it into doable action items that we, even as a faculty or staff here at the University of Arizona Global Campus, can implement in our processes. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Any last words before we go? All right.
Just
Go ahead.
Just for professors to, as you're working with your minority students, your African-American students, when we talk about culturally relevant, and I'm sure you guys, Dr. Miller, will go in, just don't always be quick to think that they don't want it or they don't care. Try to make a connection. Relationships are important. And just try to make a connection. That's
right. Right. That was actually one of our questions. I think what I'm going to do when I send out the recording, I'm going to send the questions, the panel questions that we intended, so that those of you can kind of see the direction, kind of where we intended to go, and you can hear where like all of this weight of conversation came from. So thank you. Tavon, you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just real quick, I'm one of those people that use social media for what it's supposed to be used for. So I did drop my ad in there. If anybody drops theirs, I definitely follow people, friend you on Facebook, because like Dr. Walker said, it's really about the collaboration, the sharing of different resources. So if somebody in Malaysia is experiencing something with a kid that could benefit me, I would absolutely love to see it or post it or whatever. So just really trying to make sure that we connect. So after this, it doesn't just, the conversation doesn't die here, but it continues to perpetuate into the future.
All right, I'm going to repost Tavon's at, and I believe, tell me your website again.
tpmotivates.com. tpmotivates.com. And Dr. Newt, if you do me a favor, the Advantage Program York.org as well. That's the nonprofit website that we have. And what the Advantage Program does is we mentor young men 7 to 17. Our 3 goals are exposure. So once a month, we take them out of what we call York City. So we've taken them down to Morgan State University, or HBCU, for their homecoming. We've taken them to the Constitution Center to Philadelphia. We tried to make an Eagles game, but we couldn't make it. So we had to settle for a Ravens game, but we try to expose them. The second piece is the sustainable plan. After high school, what is it that you want to do? With us being 7 to 17, our younger population, 7 to 12, their plan is more of making sure they're doing their chores and turning in their homework and being responsible at home, while the older kids are making sure what is the plan for after high school. And then the third thing we do is the mentorship and advocacy piece. And advocacy is just as important, because judicial system, at school, even at home, because a lot of parents don't go advocate for their kids at school. And if the parent won't speak up for them, that's when you see the kid shy back, and the kid all of a sudden isn't the same kid at school as they are at home or even in my program. So again, the Advantage program, and thank you guys for your time.
Outstanding. So we have we have the website for Tavon, if you'd like to support his programs in any way or gain some knowledge or connect with maybe something in your city, maybe something can be expanded. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. This was the 4th of 5 conversations for the Black History Month 2023 celebration here at the University of Arizona Global Campus, hosted by the Global Black Community Student Group. We will see you next week for the 5th of 5 conversations, and the title of that conversation, let me pull it up so I don't get it wrong. Should have had it all the way up. It's not scrolling. Where is it? There it is. It is called Family Quilt, My Story, My Patch. We will have some actual family stories, history stories that have taken place in some of our students. I know mine. I'm going to share one from my family history, and we will have a presentation from a female doctor, one of the first actually in this York County area, a Black female doctor who is practicing. So thank you very much. Listen, make it a great day or not, because that choice is always yours. Peace and hair grease.